The following is a paid advertisement of St. Anthony Hospital Orthopedics. References to any specific product, services, or entity does not constitute an endorsement or recommendation by St. Anthony Hospital, Carroll Broadcasting, or its advertisers. The views expressed by the host or guests are their own, and their appearance on the program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent. Welcome to the St. Anthony Hospital Orthopedic Show with Dr. Richard Godding. Dr. Godding specializes in joint preservation, reconstruction, and replacement surgery, and brings over 25 years of orthopedic excellence to St. Anthony Hospital and to the Carroll area. For more information about Dr. Godding, his practice, or St. Anthony Orthopedics, go to saintantonyhospital.org or make an appointment by calling 712-794-5536.
Good Sunday morning, Iowa. It's Dr. Rick Godding. Thank you very much for choosing to spend a little time with me here in the dog days of summer, as they call it. And State Fair getting ready to start up. Both my daughters will be working food stands at the State Fair this year. My oldest did it last year, and my youngest is doing it this year. And it's a great opportunity for them to have a little bit of a summer job. My oldest has been lifeguarding all summer too. My youngest has not because she's just turned 14, so she's just eligible to work. And, it's really great. You get them out there and see what the world is about and have to deal with the whole idea of working. And I know some kids start sort of on the family farm and things like that earlier, but we don't have that. So this is their first opportunity. And I've mentioned it before, but it's been a while. You can open an IRA for your child. As soon as they start working and paying taxes, they can put the entire amount that they earn. So if they earn, my daughter earned a few $100s at the State Fair last year. It was under $1,000, but it was hundreds of dollars. I don't know. And we were able to put that amount into her IRA. So she's sitting there at 16 years old with an IRA. And so you can do that for your child or your grandchild, and the entire amount that they earn is eligible to go, I think up to $3,000 a year is eligible to go into an IRA. Of course, what is $1,000 at 16, and if you retire 50 years later, that's going to be a lot of money compounded over time. So it's just kind of a cool little trick that an accountant friend of mine let us in on, and we're pretty happy about that. But if you do have the ability to do that for your kids or grandkids, is a great way to obviously help them in their future for all of that, but also to understand, well, this is how it works, and this is how the stock market works, and this is all that. So anyway, just thought I didn't know anything about that until my accountant friend told me, and I think it's a great thing, and it rewards the kids. And they can either, they can take the money that they get after taxes. I don't know how they put it in before taxes. I don't think they can. I haven't seen any mechanism, and typically these people are not setting up, food vendors at the fair are not setting up 401ks for their 2-week employees or IRAs. However, you can set it up yourself. And again, if you have the means, they can put what they make in, but you can put the amount that they paid in taxes. You can go ahead and put that in their IRA. So kind of a cool thing, good way to get the kids involved and reward them for what they've done and all that. So I wanted to talk today, as the fall is coming around and winter and ice and fractures, I wanted to talk about hip fractures. And the reason is because, well, I don't think I've talked about it much, and it's a real big issue for elderly people. So if you're over 70, you're sort of by definition at risk for a hip fracture. Now, that doesn't mean that everybody has osteoporosis or anything like that at that age, but let's just talk about it. So hip fractures typically are considered a fracture of osteoporosis. Osteoporosis is where the bones get porous or weak or thin. And this happens with natural aging. But let's talk about how you can avoid that, or at least minimize it. I don't think there's any way to avoid it completely, but And this goes out to everybody. I don't care how, especially women, because women tend to have more osteoporosis than men, and hip fractures are more predominantly women, but men get them as well. But the number one way you can prevent osteoporosis, which is the thinning out of your bones, which puts you at risk for these hip fractures, is to exercise and eat a good diet. And, don't smoke and don't drink a lot of alcohol. And it's basically taking care of your body, and your body takes care of you. But exercise especially. If you can walk, I've always said the healthy 80-plus-year-old patients in my office always tell me that they walk every day. I think it's one of the easiest and most important things you can do is just get out and walk as much as you can every day. If it's in the winter, if you go to the rec center or the YMCA or whatever you have, go to some of the malls if you live in a bigger city. You can go to the mall and walk around. Get your steps in, because it really helps you to slow down the osteoporosis. Now, if you're a woman, you honestly should be thinking about this. Women, they'll peak somewhere in the 20s to early 30s. Your bone mass will peak. Your bones will be as strong as they're going to be. And they're not going to get any stronger. And they will start to sort of deteriorate over time. But again, the process can be slowed down. And how you slow it down is being active and eating a proper diet. Now, there's a lot of different ways to get to what's considered a proper diet. Of course, if you've been listening, you know that I'm on the carnivore diet. I've lost 49 pounds and feel great. Blood pressure's good. But there's lots of ways to do it. That's certainly not the only way. But I can tell you the number one thing, eat food with one ingredient. As many things on your plate. So I'm not saying like a salad has multiple ingredients, but if you do it right, your salad is going to have lettuce and, whatever, tomatoes, onions, whatever you like to put on there, maybe even a little cheese. But all those have one ingredient. And if you put a dressing on there, don't put a dressing with a big list. Make it oil and vinegar or something like that, which is 2 ingredients, but, they're mixing up. Most of the bottled dressings that you find in the grocery store have tons of preservatives, and some of them even have sugar, so they're not that great. But anyway, the cleaner you'll eat and the more you'll exercise, the better you'll be. And one thing that I always tell people is lifting with your upper extremities is very important. And it doesn't just keep your arms and your chest stronger. It actually signals to your body to increase your muscle mass. And if you combine that with walking, it's going to decrease the rate at which your bone kind of gets more porous and weak as you get older. The other thing is you got to eat enough protein. People need more protein as you age, because you can get a thing called sarcopenia, which is basically when your muscles just start to waste away. So aging, you can't stop the years, but you can really slow down how the years are affecting your body by taking good care of it. And so that's what I really want to encourage. So let's get back to the subject at hand, which is hip fractures. So they come in essentially 2 major categories, and one is a femoral neck fracture, and the other is what we call a trochanteric fracture. So the ball and the socket of the hip is essentially the end of the femur bone, which is your thigh bone, has a ball attached to it. And then the socket is in the pelvic bone. So that's the ball and the socket. Technically, it's the head of the femur and the acetabulum in the pelvis, which create the joint. Now, if you fall and you break the neck of your femur, what happens is the neck of the femur is what the ball is attached to. When there's a crack through there, if it's very displaced, in other words, if it just knocks the ball off, then we do a partial hip replacement. And this is an operation that is very common, and it works quite well. Sometimes if you already have arthritis, we'll do a total hip replacement. Total hip replacement we typically do for arthritis, but in the case of somebody who breaks their hip and already has some arthritis, we'll go ahead and do a total replacement. I know it kind of gets a little bit confusing, but essentially if you break the neck of your femur, you're more than likely going to get some kind of a hip replacement. Could be if you don't have any arthritis and it's a little bit of a fracture and doesn't go all the way through. Sometimes we'll put some screws in, but most of the time it's going to be some sort of a replacement. And so the other type of hip fracture is called a trochanteric fracture, and there's intertrochanteric fractures and subtrochanteric fractures. And this has to do, the trochanters are just some anatomic landmarks that we use, and they're where muscles attach to the femur in order to rotate the hip around. And if you break in the trochanteric area, typically most of the time what we'll do is put a rod down from the tip of the femur down to well past the fracture site. And then you can bear weight on it immediately, and it's a really good operation. So you don't really kind of need to understand all of the little nuances of which type of fracture. I just wanted you to understand the two basic types of operations you can get if you break your hip. Now, here's the part that is not fun, is that hip fractures are very dangerous. There's a lot of bad things that can happen. You can get a pneumonia, you can get a blood clot, you can have all kinds of complications around that surgery, and they can be difficult to treat, especially in an older person who's unwell. But again, to me, what it comes down to is we want to prevent these things. So I've talked about one avenue of prevention, and that is making sure you have a good diet and that you are exercising as much as is possible for your situation. And again, start thinking about this early in life. Don't wait till you're 80 and say, oh, I'm going to start walking. However, if you are 80, please, it's never too late. It is never too late to take good care of your body. So proper diet, not junk food, not a lot of sugar, all of that stuff, and exercise. The other is your house. There are a lot of areas in the house that become more dangerous as you get older and your reflexes slow down. Maybe your vision isn't what it used to be. And obviously stairs and bathrooms are dangerous places. And so it's not a bad idea to have the handlebars in the shower and that kind of stuff. And you really, as you get older, and you can plan for this now if you're not older, is getting a walk-in shower. I know baths are nice and they feel good to sit down in the bathtub and all that stuff, but getting down into the bathtub and back up and in and out becomes more and more dangerous as you get older. And so I would say that if you are in your 70s or 80s, or you have a relative who is, it's very reasonable to go through the house. You can actually contact a physical therapist, and sometimes they will be able to come out for a fee or know who can come out and just take a look at the house and evaluate it and say, you could help maybe a bar here along the staircase on the other side. If you only have a handle on one side, a rail on one side, put a rail on the other, things like that. And again, also, a rail by the toilet, a rail by the bathroom, a walk-in shower. These are all things that need to be considered when you're talking about how am I going to avoid a hip fracture? Well, and it's not just a hip fracture, because you can fall, you can break your spine, you can break your wrists, you can break your ankle. You don't want to fall. Okay, and so you do a few things. You keep yourself healthier, and the more muscle mass you have, the less likely you are to fall. Just in general, you're going to catch yourself better. And then pay attention to the environment that you live in, and even consider getting some help as far as having someone come into the house and take a look around and say, hey, this is an area where you could change that would help you to be a little bit safer. And then also just being aware. So you have to be aware without being afraid. If you feel like, maybe I should use a cane, then use a cane. Okay. And I think some people, they don't want to start using a cane because that makes them feel like, oh no, now I'm using a cane. Let me tell you, using a cane is better than falling. Using a walker is better than falling. And so I just want to stress how important it is and how dangerous falling, because when you fall, you don't have to fall off of anything. You can fall from a standing position, and if you're over 70, you have a reasonable chance that if you fall If you trip on something in the house and you fall just to the floor, there's a reasonable chance you're going to break something badly. And so we want to really, take a multi-pronged attack as far as keeping these fractures at bay. And like I said, it's keeping your body healthy, keeping your mind healthy, of course. You want to keep sharp. The more you read and the less you watch TV, the better and sharper you'll be. And I know these kind of seem like things that we all know, but it's nice to hear it. It's nice to be reminded that these are all important. And what I hope to do with this show always is to make it useful. I want people to listen to the show and say, well, that was useful, what he said. I'm going to think about maybe starting to exercise. I'm going to think about maybe not going to the fast food place for dinner, but maybe I'm going to buy something and cook it at home, or get together with friends, or go somewhere that has something a little bit better on the menu and not have, a loaded up cheeseburger with French fries that are fried in vegetable oil and ketchup, which is sugar, on top of it, and then drink a soda. I think that we, somewhere along the way, kind of lost our health in this country. And I want people to think about, if you're 70, think about the people that were 70 when you were 10. And I bet you they were healthier in general, because they were eating better food and they were exercising more. And I think that that's a whole lot of it. But I did want you to understand the real significance of hip fractures. They are common. We see them several times a month anyway. And there are times when we have patients brought into Carroll St. Anthony's Hospital here from all over the state because everybody's shut down, because, we have issues with workforce in the healthcare industry right now and all these things. So the best thing you can do for yourself is keep yourself out of that situation. And those are the ways to do it. And it's still nice in the evenings. You can still go out and walk, but have a plan. Don't sit around in the winter. Kind of get a plan together for how you're going to maintain your muscle mass. If there's a gym, when I go to the gym, there's 80-year-olds in there. And, maybe that's not the place to start if you're 80. Maybe you start just walking and just lifting a little weight. I mean, it can be even just like a heavy soup can, just to get things moving, get your muscle mass built up. Eat your protein, because like I said, you need more and more protein as you get older. So if you are eating a very carbohydrate-rich diet, and if you get up in the morning and you have a bowl of cereal, for instance, and toast, that's not going to be good. You want to get a lot more protein into your diet. So remember that nothing's inevitable. It's not just inevitable that you get old and your bones get super weak and you have these problems. I mean, I guess at some point, yeah. But you can push things down the road. You can, by taking good care of your body, by getting your exercise, by eating your protein, by exercising your mind, by reading books and doing puzzles, and any kind of puzzle. I mean, crossword puzzle that you sit down, a jigsaw puzzle, anything that's going to stimulate your mind. All of these things are going to make you healthier and make you less likely to fall down and have a fracture. The other thing that I've talked about is probiotics. There's some evidence. Now, probiotics are bacterial, what they call colony-forming units. Now, what you take as a tablet, and you can get them at the Walgreens or Walmart or most grocery stores, and we'll have probiotics. And if you take probiotics, there's some studies that show that it helps your body to absorb the calcium that's in your diet and help your bones continue to be strong for a longer period of time. So just a little, health and safety tips, a little explanation of what a hip fracture is and the significance of them and how you can avoid them with a diet and exercise regimen and eating plenty of protein and taking your probiotics. So with that, I hope that you are going to have fun heading out to the state fair now that it's up and going. And so I will get back next week, and you have a blessed week, Iowa.
This has been the St. Anthony Hospital Orthopedic Show with Dr. Richard Goding. For more information about Dr. Goding, his practice, or St. Anthony Hospital Orthopedics, go to www.santanthonyhospital.org or make an appointment by calling 712-794-5536.